Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carlos Tech, and this is Coast to Coast Outdoors. Today on the show, we have Jason on here. He lives in Alaska and has been on a show called Alaska Offroad Warriors. He's got an interesting wheeling spots out there, and he's got a lot of outdoor experience. He's got a lot of videos on YouTube that I found very interesting, and we'll share all those links with you. If you want to know more about Coast to Coast Outdoors, you can, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go down to the description, find all the links to not only Jason, but also to Coast Outdoors. If you're listening to iTunes, just like always, click on the image and you'll be able to get all the social media links for Jason and also Coast Outdoors. So, Jason, welcome to the show. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name's Jason Beard, and I was the Land Rover guy. The Land Rover team, Team Rover 1 from the Show and History channel, Alaska Offroad Warriors, which aired this past winter. And wild, crazy show. Had a lot of fun doing it. And I live up here in Wasilla, Alaska. And, I was basically brought on the show to talk about a little bit about the show, but, about the outdoors up here in Alaska. And the wheeling up here and, all the opportunities we have up here to get out in the outdoors and enjoy it, and those are the things that I like to pass on to other people. And I like to see people getting out in the outdoors, getting on the trails, doing the wheeling, doing the exploring, and all that sort of stuff. So I'm thrilled to death to have this opportunity to be on here and talk about that.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming on. I sounded like Elvis right now. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's hilarious.
Yeah. And when you mentioned that the YouTube channel, that's the Team Rover 1 YouTube channel. There's a Team Rover 1 Facebook page, and that has a lot of behind the scenes pictures from the show and pictures of the D90 Land Rover behind me, pictures of my 1969 Series 2 Land Rover that I also had on the show. And various wheeling trips and pictures from around Alaska. And my personal Facebook page, Jason Beard, also has, a lot of the same pictures and a lot of the wheeling trips that I've done in the last few years. And, you can get on there. I got tons of albums, tons of pictures. And also I have a club up here that was started for Land Rovers and guys with Land Rovers up here. And then we've kind of, over the last year, merged it. We have members with several other different types of rigs, Toyotas, Jeeps, basically, just whatever they want to wheel. We like the older stuff. And, just to get those guys out on the trails and the families, and get out and do some of the easier trails as a club. And that's called Great Northern Rovers. There's also a Facebook page for that. And that has little trip reports and pictures of the trips that we've done as a club. So all that stuff could be checked out. I'm on Instagram at Jason Beard Adventure. And, I try to throw out as many pictures as I can, videos. I'm starting to put a lot of videos on Facebook and YouTube of, local wheeling here in Alaska. And just trying to share as much as I can with people across the world and show them, what we have here in Alaska and how great the outdoors really is.
Okay. So talking about a little bit, you were talking about vehicles and things like that. So take us through your vehicle. I mean, you said you had one Land Rover. This is your second, right? Take us a little bit about your vehicle. Tell us a little bit about what kind of vehicle you have, and then we'll get into some other stuff after that.
Okay. I've always had off-road trucks of all sorts of different kinds. Growing up, my dad had them. I grew up in Michigan, a lot of wheeling going on in the 80s and 90s. So I grew up around that, had big trucks, big horsepower, big tires. did the the competition mud bog stuff in Michigan. Kind of got burnt out on all that. We had moved to Alaska and I lived out on the island of Unalaska in the city of Dutch Harbor for 5 years, which you can't wheel at all out there. It's native-owned land, so I mean, you just can't do it. So once I moved here to the valley, Matanuska Valley here in Alaska on the mainland, tremendous amounts of trails. So I originally bought a 92 Range Rover Classic and kind of try to haul around the family. I have 2 small girls, and I wanted to get out and explore the trails first, and figure out what they were about before I really decided on what vehicle would be best for me. And did some wheeling with that. The hood is right there behind me with the Warren sticker on it. That's the old hood off the Range Rover Classic. I beat that thing into the dirt. Just drove it through the ringer, and explored a lot of trails, learned about trails, and I just kind of stuck with the Land Rovers. I have a 1969 Series 2A. It's the red and white one that was on the show, and the pictures are all over Facebook of it, and pretty much stock. I cut some fenders out, was able to put 35-inch tires on it, and that's kind of my workhorse. I haul trash to the garbage, the dump with it, drive around town with it, and I still get on the trails with the club. That's the one I primarily take with the club on the club runs. The one behind me is the green 1984 Defender 90 that I started the show with, and messed up the motor in the 3rd episode. So that came home, finished the show with the red one. So this one sat, and for about a year, over the winter, this last winter while the show was airing, did a bunch of work to this one, and kind of got it to more of where I wanted it for the trails that I want to go on, and extremely happy with it now. I'm running the 37-inch Maxxis Trepadors. It's got the dual motor, Warren 8274 winch on it, giggle pin parts. We do a lot of winching up here. So that's kind of my go-to piece of equipment. 300 TDI diesel motor in it, and which is, fairly unique. It's cool to have that diesel motor on the trail. Sometimes I smoke out the guys behind me, and they get a little teary-eyed after a couple hours of following me. But I can crawl around low gear with it. The motor makes up for the gearing, plenty of low-end torque. And then, if I have to, I can spin those 37s, 2nd, 3rd gear. And, I'm super happy with it. It's kind of my more, extreme trail rig, for the more extreme trails. And, I'll rely on the older 69 for the little fun trips. And, I'm knee deep in Land Rovers. I work at a buddy's shop, Steadfast Off-Road, here in Alaska in Peters Creek. And, we, primarily work on Land Rovers. We'll do some Jeep lifts every now and then, so we're kind of working on different things. But, I kind of have a soft spot in my heart now for Land Rovers. And so I'm kind of sticking with them and having a great time with them.
Is your current, the one behind us, is that a right-hand drive?
Oh, yeah, it is. It is a right-hand drive. I have 2. My daily driver this last year was a blue one, just like the one behind me, an 86 300 TDI right-hand drive. The motor from that is now in this green one. So the blue one's sitting, going to get rebuilt this winter. And, the right-hand drive is fun. I drive around town. I get all sorts of crazy looks, people taking pictures, asking me if it's legal, asking me where I got it, where it was from, it's a trip driving around, what everyone says is the wrong side.
Yeah.
But I tell them I'm always on the right side.
Yeah,
Everyone else is on the wrong side,
Yeah. All right. So now that you took us through some of your vehicles and things like that. So when you were on the show, how was that? Take us through, like, what did you do? I know you went through 3 episodes, but that must have took like a progression of like 2 weeks or something to do all that, or maybe more.
It did. The overall production, took all summer, about 2.5 months. And, each episode for them to film took several days. And, the show is shown on television as, we're doing the trails consecutively. It looks like we're spending all the time on the trails, going from one trail to the next. And, it's TV. And, television shows, they put together television shows, production companies do, to tell a story, to entertain people. And I think over the next couple of years, more Americans are finally going to kind of get it, that what they're seeing on television, even though it's called a reality show, is not necessarily all reality.
More
majority of people kind of, not really staged, but like for this show, they just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of footage, and it comes down to the editing. They definitely have a story to tell, and they very creative with their editing. So we didn't stage anything. What you saw on the TV show, we really did. Couple times we were asked to redo something because the cameras may have missed something or something, but it was all done real time. The drama is all real. All the trail footage is all real, and we really did get to do a fantastic adventure, across the state. And what you see on television is the final product that the History Channel shows is, highly edited, done in a format that they wanted to do as a television show. There's enough footage that they could have done the television show several different ways. They could have showed it just as a straight adventure, where we helped everyone, helped each other, sat around the campfire, at night, having a good time, because we really did that. And, and we really did fight and yell and cuss each other out and run into each other on the trail and everything that, they showed the race aspect, the drama parts. And, that's what Americans want to see. And, that's what was put on television. We had a blast doing it, and, it was a great experience, killer experience. And, the show was kind of controversial, and, because they showed us doing things that, you can do up here, morally and ethically, there was some questions that arose, but in the end, everything we did was legal. The state and federal government was very satisfied and happy with how it all played out across the state. The only repercussions that I heard about was from people out of the state that, didn't fully understand that the trails we did go on, we were fully permitted to go on. Everything we did was well within the law. And, and even by Alaska standards, what we did was very tame, and very, very easy. Most of the trails up here are just hardcore, insane trails, big mud, hill climbs, river crossings, so extreme. So what they showed on the TV was very tame. And, they just made it to look very dramatic and very fun.
Yeah.
And, and that's what the show ended up being, successful show. And, everyone wants to know if there's a season 2. I haven't heard anything, that's all up to production company and History Channel. Hope there is, and, if I took all the feedback that I've gotten from around the world of people watching the show, 90% positive. People all over the world absolutely love the show. And the negative parts, the negative people, the initial outcry from people died off very quickly, once people watched more of the episodes and kind of realized, it's a television show, and it's highly edited and dramatic, but yeah, around the world, people loved it. And I think for everyone that was involved, it was a great thing. It kind of showed some Alaska trails and showed some different types of wheeling, and different types of things to do on the trail. It showed a lot of mistakes, probably what you shouldn't be doing on trails. So people got to see a little bit of that. But overall, I think it was a fantastic opportunity and very positive.
All right. So now that you've been up to Alaska and you did this TV show and things like that, tell us a little bit about, I know that you said there's a lot of mud and things like that, but obviously everywhere you go around the world, doesn't matter. There's going to be hard spots and, nice and easy trails for beginners and things like that. So if you were to kind of, around where you're at, what kind of is the trail rating? Like, what is the minimum requirement? Like, do you have to be on 35s in a general season? Because obviously winter is different conditions than in summer and then fall and things like that. So what is the general consensus of what everybody needs to be riding in? Is it 35s? You have to have a winch, lights, so on and so on?
35s are kind of, the go-to all-around size. You start getting lower than that, 33s. You can do the trails. I've done them, with 33s. I've done a lot of trails. But there's a lot of obstacles on these trails up here. A lot of rocks, a lot of branches overhang, a lot of body damage that can be done. And, anything under 35s and then without lockers, especially, the trails can be run. There's plenty of trails, but it gets a lot harder, and you got to winch more and you take a lot of body damage. Things get broke. That's why, I bumped up to the 37s, and, it just makes going on most of the trails a little easier. There are still trails that are, 37s are too small. So a lot of these trails up here are historic mining trails and they're hunting trails. Up here we have access to a tremendous amount of land for hunting, for, mining. And a lot of those rigs are big. Moose buggies are typically big, tractor-tired rigs, wide agricultural tires for the better flotation over swamps and stuff like that. So there are a lot of trails that are just huge trails, huge mud holes. Within this valley, within about 100 miles, there's a lot of trails that 37s and 35s are fun. You're still going to do some winching. You still might take some body damage. But a good rig, 35s with lockers, and an efficient winching system, and and a driver that's got a little bit of skill, and the possibilities are endless. The fun and getting out on the trails with a rig set up like that opens up a big world. The smaller stuff will, it'll get beat up and maybe not be as fun. And then, there's always the option of getting the bigger rigs and going further, and exploring more. The possibilities are endless up here, basically.
Okay. So let's say let's go back to like one of your first experience once you first got out there and you started wheeling. What was it like? Because most of us have never been to Alaska or seen scenery like that that's open wide and with different animals and things like that. I'm from the city, and the closest I've lived to the country has been down in Kentucky and things like that. So there's a big drastic difference between Kentucky and LA as far as scenery. But I can imagine coming from Michigan to Alaska and going on your first wheeling trip. How was that experience?
Oh, it was incredible. Especially here in the valley, we're surrounded by mountains. So that alone, it's intimidating, because you're looking at the mountains, and the first thing you realize is most of the trails go up into those mountains. So the very first thing you got to kind of deal with is, the changes in elevation. If you've never wheeled up trails that gain significant elevation pretty quick, it's very intimidating, and the other thing is a lot of the trails will cross rivers, and a lot of water crossings, and that too, it's very intimidating if you've never done that before or seen that, because you make a mistake and it's going to ruin your day very quickly. So that, the scenery is just incredible. Everywhere you go. I mean, just driving my kids to school in the morning, the scenery is incredible. Right now, we've got mountains all around us that are about 3/4 covered with snow. The snow line is coming down, and so you got basically this ring of snow all the way around us. We don't have enough snow on the ground down in the valley right now, but it's coming. But yeah, we're, all the snow, wheeling in the snow is a huge challenge all winter long. As we get all these different types of snow, powder snow, wet snow, it all happens here throughout the winter. And, it's hard to have a rig, or have tires. It's hard to have that setup that can do everything in the snow. And, it's always a challenge. You get a group to go on a trip. We've done a couple trips where we didn't even get out of basically the trailhead parking lot because of the snow. And, so that too, and then it's cold, it may be 20 to 30 below zero. And that's painful if you're not prepared for it. The cold will really, suck the energy out of you, demotivate you, and you have to be ready for that. And coming from other states, coming from other areas and moving here, it's all those things that you got to figure out quickly, or you're just not going to have a good time. And most people do, most wheelers listen to each other, or they'll do some research and they'll figure out quickly. And, because they ultimately want to have fun on the trail. They just you have to learn and kind of pay attention and watch what others do and learn from the guys that grew up here, and have been doing this for a long time. That's where I got, most of my advice from was when I got here. I made it a point to search out the guys that have lived here for a long time and had been on all these trails, over their lifetime. And, I really paid attention to what they had to say and learned from, those Alaskans that been doing this their whole life. And that helped me out tremendously.
Okay. So in the winter, as we're coming up close to wintertime, I don't know, well, you said there was already snow up there. What kind of different things you got to do to your vehicle to kind of prepare it for winter? I mean, do you put different lights on? Do you put different tires? Do you work on getting max tracks, or what is it you do to go out wheeling during the winter?
Max tracks would be awesome. They're expensive. I'm going to give it a shot. I'll give the Trepadors a shot in the snow this winter. Right now, for me, the two biggest things right now are heat and lights. Land Rover's Defenders aren't known for the great heat they put out. And, they're all aluminum. And, mine's kind of stripped on the inside. So there isn't a whole lot of insulation or anything like that. So heat is a big deal. And then lights, because it's starting to get dark. It gets dark a lot earlier, and then the sun really doesn't get up into the air until a lot later in the morning. And as we go further into winter, it just gets harsher and harsher. It gets colder, and less light. I'm running all KC lights. I got the light bar and the spotlights, and you got to have good headlights. And right now is all the Jeepers, all the other guys running around. Right now they all start to focus on lights. They get all light crazy for about the next month. Everyone wants the brightest, craziest LEDs right now, and it makes a difference up here. And you got to have the good lights. And for me, I like to have the good heat as well. Other than that, there isn't really you really don't have to modify a vehicle a whole lot. A wider, more flotation type tire is usually better. The boggers, and the aggressive super swampers, they tend to dig into the snow, a little quicker, and it's hard to be unless you have big horsepower that can kind of move that material out of the way. The more aggressive tires tend to dig into the snow a little quicker, and people get stuck a lot more. Where a wider flotation tire is going to keep you up on top of the snow, and we run into the problem though is because most of the trails start to go up fairly quick. There's a long time during the winter where you just can't go on a trail because the amount of snow, you just can't do it. And it just gets to be too much of a pain.
What is a typical? What's a typical snow amount, like on a trail that hasn't been used? Like if it was an easy trail and now you're in the winter and makes it hard because you have, I don't know what the typical snowfall is out there.
Feet of snow.
Feet of snow.
Oh yeah, feet of snow. The last couple of winters have been kind of mild, so there's been a lot more trail activity, but typically, feet. You don't realize until you see it, you're like, it's down in the valley, we're at sea level. So there's areas like where I live, once there's snow on the ground, that's the other thing is once there's snow on the ground, it stays, it stays well into March. So we don't have those periods, in December, January where it warms up and things melt off. I mean, the snow in a typical year just keeps piling up and piling up and piling up. And, most of the trails are still, they're used all winter long by snow machines. And, so they get hard packed, in the center. And, that you run into a problem with that. You get on the trails and the snow machines have made those tracks down the center. And, if you fall off, it kind of compacts the snow and you fall off that, you're stuck. I mean, you're falling into 2 or 3 foot of powdery snow off to the side. And it makes the trail time super difficult. Because it literally feet of snow you got to deal with.
Ah, see, I haven't dealt with feet of snow. I've dealt with inches of snow. Inches of snow I've dealt with. So feet of snow are kind of different. So when do you go camping out there, obviously during the summer, because in the winter it's kind of cold, and I'm a chicken. I don't go out in the cold, so I don't know about you, but it seems like it gets really cold out there. So when you go camping, what kind of equipment do you take, or what do you guys go do and things like that?
Sure, a lot of camping. Probably 90%, easily, maybe 95% of all the wheeling trips that most people do involves some sort of camping. A lot of the trails you could spend 3-4 days on easily, and camping, and wheeling, and even the shorter trips. People love you. Once you're here and living here, you want to be, especially in the summer when it warms up and everything's green, everything's beautiful, and there's so much wildlife. You want to be out in it, and a lot of guys are going to rooftop tents on their Jeeps and other rigs to be able to do just that. You can get out on a trail, and typically, it's always been tent camping and things like that. But, you got to deal with bears, you got to deal with moose, and kind of the current trend right now is a lot of people are going to rooftop tents. It puts them up a little higher. It makes, wives and girlfriends feel a lot more secure when they're up off the ground. So, there's a big transition to that. But typically it's the same gear, that you'd have anywhere else in the country. Coolers, tents, sleeping bags, all that sort of stuff. There's nothing really specialized that's needed. The big factor that's needed is just the desire to use the gear. And not to buy it and just shove it in your garage and use it a couple times a year, but actually use that gear as much as possible. Because we don't have to pay to camp up here. There's so much wide open land and so many trails that, you can very easily get out away from other people and, go and set up camp and just have an incredible view, an incredible experience, and do all that with kind of minimal gear. You don't need anything super fancy. You don't need a motorhome and all that stuff. You can camp right out of your off-road rig very easily.
Nice. I think we're all about out of time here. Got about 35 minutes and things like that. But is there anything else you want to talk about? Keep talking also, because I'm clearly interested in your. I'm clearly interested in what you got to say, because I like.
Sure.
I love the outdoors. I like going exploring new places and things like that. And that's the whole reason we created the show, is to give people the avenue to the experience and things like that, and have guests like you come on and talk about the outdoors that's in different parts of the world. So it's up to you if you want to keep talking.
Well, and it's just not about the wheeling. My little brother's bike is behind me. Tremendous amount of ATVs up here. The trails up here are multi-user. I mean, there's people on horseback. There's people on bikes, fat tire, bikes. There's guys on motorcycles. There's ATVs. Side-by-sides have exploded up here. Families, just tremendous amounts of activity in the outdoors up here. And, it's fascinating for me to see it, because, I've lived in other parts of the United States where that just wasn't the case. You don't have access to the land like you do up here. And this up here is very special. And, people do take it serious. They take that ability to access that land very serious, and huge level of responsibility, when you have that sort of access. And, people truly, they get it up here. They really appreciate what they have. And, and the state is all about promoting that, and keeping these areas open. And, as long as people continue to be responsible and enjoy the land, it benefits everyone. And it's just incredible. It's an incredible place to live. It's an incredible place to visit. And there's just a lot going on.
All right. Sounds good. Well,
yeah, and if anyone wants to come up here, anyone wants to come up here and wheel, look me up, get online, get on Facebook, there's a bunch of other Facebook Jeep clubs, get on there, talk to people, figure out what's going on. The other thing, Alaskans they're incredibly, welcoming. People that come up here, they want the tourism, they appreciate tourism. They want to show, what Alaska's all about. And, if anyone wants to come up here and wheel, look me up, get a hold of me. I can take you on just killer trails, and, we'll have a blast.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get a hold of them, if you're watching this on YouTube, just go down to the description. You'll be able to get all the social media links and things like that. If you're on iTunes, just click on the picture and you'll be able to do the same. Jason, thanks for coming on to the show and talking about your experience out in Alaska, the show that you went on, Alaska Offroad Warriors. Hopefully they make another season and you get to come on to the show. And so, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been great.